The writer Maxwell Conroe makes us pause and think. His short story, titled Mesmerized by Coetzee, is a great example. Maxwell mocks John Coetzee's audacious Nobel Laureate lecture. A very taxing piece of prose, the essay He and His Man, read by Coetzee, according to Maxwell Conroe, seemingly lacks utility. Coetzee has written a vast series of novels set in the archaic landscape of 20th century South Africa, with its fractured apartheid system and deep divide between whites from German, Dutch and English descent. Rather unexpectedly, he was awarded a Nobel Laureate in 2003. John Coetzee delivered one of the most audacious Nobel Laureate lectures on record. He took his audience all the way back to the romantic times of Daniel Defoe. Coetzee's lecture appears a very taxing piece of prose, seemingly lacking utility. Would the Nobel Prize really be awarded to someone who writes stories with only quelque chose de beau, instead of focusing on matters that touch and provoke moral feelings? I wanted to see my psychiatrist about that. Alas, I could not book any time until later. "Ah, is that why you are here?" This was the voice of my psychiatrist. I have no idea how I got here. "How did I get here?" I ask. In front of me sits a little man with a red jacket. He always wears the same red jacket. That is how I can quickly tell this man is my psychiatrist. "Are you seeing halos again?" "No, doctor. I have not had any more halo visions for quite a while." When I open my eyes, there is no red jacket, no soul to be seen. I am alone in a bus station, with a laptop on my lap. It is dark and cold. How did I get here? I do not know, and this time no one is around to answer my queries. When I see headlights, they become brighter as the groaning sound of the bus engine nears. I am not quite sure where this bus will take me. How do other writers jump on their buses? I have read a great deal, but what inspires writers varies a whole lot. Forget about the meaning of being. Let us not waste our time on trying to bare our souls. What I really want to write about is the utter uselessness of literary writing. Here are my reasons for doing so. Writing a really great story takes years. You may think differently, but the authors of truly great stories took years to write them. Their stories became so successful because they have been rewritten, edited, and polished endless times. Great writers have powerful visions for their story, and no story is ever good enough to express that vision eloquently the first time around. For example, The Little Prince was cut down by its creator to just a third of its original, painstakingly written manuscript. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry had written Le Petit Prince as a work of passion, and that is what matters in the end. His work, deemed too short by literary experts to earn the title of a novel, was called a novelette. And now I am determined to prove to you the utter uselessness of literary writing. The best evidence was brought to mankind by no less than John Maxwell Coetzee, an Afrikaner author. From his writings, I learned that John thinks a great deal about the meaning of being. But he does not live along the playbook, nor does he have to, of Tolstoy's. He never makes explicit what is worth living for. Perhaps it is fairer to say that his characters know nothing but inner struggles, perpetually tormented by life in all its glory. No, Coetzee does not give us much guidance on the meaning of being. Or maybe just that is what he is truly confused about, or stealthy enough he prefers to keep us all in the dark about the true meaning and what he thinks of it, the meaning of being. Quite remarkably, yes, most remarkable, Coetzee's capricious writings won him the attention of the Nobel Committee. Its voting members were impressed enough to award him their finest of awards. For an Afrikaner, winning the Nobel Prize in Literature is no small feat. Of course, I am being a little mean here by making it sound as if being Afrikaner would disqualify Coetzee a priori for winning his Nobel Award. But if you read Coetzee's work, you'll see that he himself keeps mentioning how his Afrikaner background was a continual source of derision for native or ethnic English speakers, at least in South Africa. In the end, it made him emigrate to Australia, as far away from Bloemfontein as he possibly could. You must know that Coetzee's stories are often quasi-biographical, or at least he makes us believe they are. In these stories, he repeatedly mentions how he grew up in an Afrikaner family, but that they spoke mostly English at home, so he learned the dreaded language from an early age. John's prose is brimming with references to failed applications for teacher positions in English language and literature studies. He mentions the Afrikaner pedigree of his protagonists as a possible cause of these failures. In fact, Coetzee's use of the English language I deem extremely sophisticated, aiming for an unprecedented level of literacy. The best proof of this extraordinary literacy he expects from his audience one can discover when replaying the superbly eloquent delivery of his Nobel Prize speeches. A little bit confusingly, there are two versions of his Nobel speech. Actually, two speeches were delivered by John Coetzee. One is his rather quaint banquet speech of 10th of December 2003, in which he says at one point, "And for whom anyway do we do the things that lead to Nobel Prizes, if not for our mothers? Mommy, Mommy," he said, "Mommy, Mommy, I won a prize." And then, according to the awarded writer's account, his long-deceased mother replies, "That's wonderful, my dear. Now go and eat your carrots before they get cold." English understatement is skillfully portrayed here by Coetzee, looking dead serious as ever. How far from his Afrikaner roots has he strayed, this noble man Coetzee, by not seizing the opportunity to at least recite a few words of his prose lines in Afrikaans? Who understands Afrikaans anyway? Coetzee must have thought. Let's dish out some solid English prose instead.